Hello everyone, Mr. Clint here. Today you will be learning fraction, ratio, and percentage. So don't forget to take down notes and listen carefully to our discussions. Mathematics Online. Alright, hello guys. Today we will be discussing about fractions, ratios, and percentages. Now first we're going to start with fractions. So what do you mean by fraction? Alright, fraction tells us how many parts are there in a whole. Alright, so that's what you mean by fractions. Again, what is fractions? Fraction, it tells us how many parts are there in a whole. So that is what they mean by fraction. So example to which we have here 1/2, you have 3/4, you have 7/11, you have 22/21. Alright, these are all fractions. Now what are the parts of fractions? How do we name them? Alright, so the parts of fractions are, example, we have here, I have here a over b. A here stands for the numerator, and b here stands for the denominator. Alright, numerator is the top number, while the denominator is the bottom number. And this line here in the middle is what we call fractional bar. Alright, we call this as fractional bar. And this one, its job is to separate numerator and denominator. Alright, so again, parts of a fraction, you have numerator and you have a denominator, and the line that separates the two is what we call fractional bar. Numerator is the top number, while denominator is the bottom number. Alright, now we have kinds of, no, not kinds, we have types of fractions. Alright, types of fractions. The first one, we have proper fraction, which the numerator is lesser than the denominator. Okay, example, we have 3/8, of which 3 is lesser than 8. Alright, so that is what we call proper fraction. So the next one is what we call improper fraction. So the numerator, for improper fraction, the numerator is greater than the denominator. Alright, example, okay, we have 10/7, for which 10 is greater than 7. Alright, and the third type of fraction is what we call mixed number. Mixed number is a combination of a whole number and a fraction. Okay, example, we have 1 and 1/3, of which 1 here is the whole number and 1/3 is our fraction. Alright, so again, let's try to review this. The three types of fraction. The three types of fraction. The first one is what we call proper fraction, for which the numerator is lesser than the denominator. Okay, now we have here the numerator is lesser than the denominator. Next is we have the improper fraction. Now improper fractions, these are fractions of which the numerator is greater than the denominator. Okay, so we have an example here. We have here 10 is greater than 7. Now the third one is what we call mixed number. So what are mixed number? Mixed number is a combination of a whole number and a fraction. Okay, here's the whole number and here is your fraction. Okay, so these are the three types of fraction: proper, improper, and mixed number. Now we go now to operations involving fractions. Alright, operations involving fractions. So the first one will be addition and subtraction. We're going to combine the two because they have the same, almost the same rule. The only difference is subtraction is you add, subtraction is you subtract or minus, then addition is the plus. But they have the same rule. Alright, we go for the first one with the same denominator. Or we call this as like or similar fraction. Right? Let's try to use the most common word. We call this as similar fraction. Alright, similar because their denominator are the same. Okay, so example. If you have 1/3 plus 2/3. Alright, 1/3 plus 2/3. Now, notice their denominators are the same. So all you have to do is with this, you just have to copy this. So therefore, we have here 3. And then add. So therefore, we have 1 plus 2. The answer is 3/3 or 1. So the answer is 1. So if you have the same denominator, all you have to do is copy the denominator. Second is when you have unlike denominator or dissimilar fraction. Once their denominators are not the same. Are not the same. So therefore, let's have a quick example here. Now, once the denominator are not the same, for example, we have here 6. We have here 1/3 plus 1/6. Okay, notice that denominators are not the same. So the first step, the step that you're going to do is look for the LCD, and LCD stands for the least common denominator. All right, LCD. So how do we look for the LCD? First is we write 3, and then we have 6. Get the multiples of 3. You have 3, 6, 9, and 12. The other one is 6, 12, 18, and 24. Now, the lowest possible number that they have is 6. Correct? So therefore, their LCD is 6. So therefore, we use 6 as our new divisor, or the new denominator. This is our new denominator. So therefore, we write here 6. Correct? So 6 divided by 3, the answer is 2, times 1, the answer is 2. Bring down the plus. 6 divided by 6 is 1, times 1, the answer is 1. So therefore, we have here 3 over 6, or this is equals to 1/2. Alright, so the answer is 1/2. Alright, so that's how we look for the LCD. The LCD here will be the new denominator. Alright, and we use this as 6 divided by 3, the answer is 2. Then multiply to 1 times 1. Next is we have here 6 divided by 6, the answer is 1. Then you multiply to 1. That's why we have 2 and 3. Okay, so the next operation for fraction is the multiplication. Alright, multiplication of fraction. Alright, how do we multiply? It is numerator times numerator, divide denominator times denominator. Okay, let's have an example. If you have 1/3 times 2/4, let's say 2/5, it is numerator times numerator, so therefore that would be 1 times 2 over denominator times denominator, so that would be 3 times 5. The answer is 2 over 15, and it is now in simplest form. Alright, next is the division of fractions. Now, division of fraction is you have to find the reciprocal of the denominator. Alright, you have to find that the reciprocal. What do you mean by reciprocal? Alright, reciprocal means you flip the fraction. Alright, so example. If we have 1/2 divided by 3/4. Okay, 1/2 divided by 3/4, and this is also written as 1/2 divided by 3/4. Yes, and then look for the reciprocal of this. The reciprocal of this is equals to 4/3. Correct? So therefore, when you solve this, you have, what you do is you copy this. So we have here 1/2, and then you copy the reciprocal. So we have here 4/3, and then proceed to and then this next thing is proceed to multiplication. To multiply. So therefore we have here 4 times 1 over 3 times 2, which is equals to 4 over 6, or 2/3. Alright, So that is how we are going to solve fractions involving the four basic operations. Let's review. Now, what are the operations involving fractions? The first one is addition and subtraction. We combine the two because they have the same rule. Remember two things. When they are similar fractions, all you have to do is copy the denominator here, and then then you have to add the numerator. Next is when you have the similar fractions, once the denominators are not the same, the first thing that you have to do is look for the LCD. LCD stands for least common denominator. Now find the multiples of 3 and the multiples of 6, and you get the least possible number of which they're the same, and that will be your LCD. And you use that LCD to be the new denominator, and then use divide it. 6 divided by 3 right here, 6 divided by 3, okay, 6 divided by 3, then you have 2 times 1, then you have here 2, then 6 divided by 6 is 1 times 1, the answer is 1. So therefore you add a 2, you have 3, 2 plus 3 is 6, and then you simplify, then you have 1/2. Now the next, the next operation would be multiplication of fraction. How do we multiply? It is as simple as numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. Example, you have here numerator, and then you have here denominator, then you multiply the two, then you have your answer. The next one is the division of fraction. Okay, division of fractions. Now, how do we divide? We look for the reciprocal of the denominator. Now, what is reciprocal? It means you flip the fraction. Alright, when you flip, A over B becomes B over A. That's how we flip. Okay, next. For example, we have here an example. This is your denominator fraction, like here. Then you get the reciprocal to that, it becomes 4/3, and then you use that 4/3 here, and then here is the original given, you use it there, then you proceed to multiplication, then you have your final answer. So this is what do you mean by division of fractions. I hope everything is clear about fractions. Now we are going to go for ratios. Right, we are going to go with ratios. So what do you mean by ratios? Ratios are used when we try to compare values, right? For example, I have a box here. We divide it into 4 parts, all right, and then we color this here as green, and we color this one here as that. So when we try to compare values, here is 3, here is 1. So 3 is to 1, and how we read it, we read it as we see it. So that becomes 3 is to 1. So therefore this one here is read as S2. That's how we compare values. So means to say there are 3 greens and 1 brown. Alright, 3 greens to 1 brown. So that's how we are going to compare values. Alright, so ratios can be written into different ways. Alright, so different way ways to write a ratio. Alright, different way to write a ratio. For example, if you have the first one will be 3:1, of which a colon separate the number. The next one is when you write 3:1. Alright, when you try to add the word two. Alright, the third one is in a fractional 3/1. And we write this, okay, we write this into a fraction form. So for short, ratio can also be written in a fraction form. Okay, let's try to review this. Okay, ratio. Alright, ratios are used when we try to compare values. Now there are different ways to write ratio. The first one is this, separated by separate the number by a colon. Next, they are separated by the word 2. And the third one, you are going to use them into a fraction form. Alright, and fraction form. Now, ratio is also the one used when you are going to do proportion. Alright, ratio also used when you are going to do proportion. Alright, ratio is also used when you are going to do proportion. Now, proportion is a comparison. Alright, it is a two ratios that are equal. Alright, example, you have 1/3 is equals to 2/6. Okay, how do we prove this, that they are equal? Okay, 1/3 is equals to 2/6. What you do is we do cross multiplication. So therefore we have now 1 times 6 is just equal to 2 times 3. Now 1 times 6 is 6, is just equal to 2 times 3 is 6. So therefore this one here is, this one here are equal. Or we call this as equivalent. Alright, the equivalent fraction. Okay, so again, ratios are used in proportions because proportions are proving that two ratios are equal by using cross multiplication. Alright, that's the one for fractions, ratios I mean. Now we go for percentage. Now, what do you mean by percentages? Alright, percentage means percent, and percent means 100. Alright, or this is one way of saying per 100. Alright, per 100. So when you say percent, it means that percent means 100. So you have to think, you have to divide it by 100. All right. So let's have an example. For example, you have 75%. So therefore, this 75 have to be divided by 100 because of this symbol here. This is the symbol for percent. So therefore, if you have 75%, you have to divide it by 100. All right, divide it by 100, so it becomes 75 over 100. So therefore, this is becomes 0.75. Okay, 0.75. So if you're going to notice it, this is in percent form. This one is in fractional form, and this one is in decimal form. All right. Again, don't forget the symbol for percent. All right. So if changing, all right, percent to decimal. All right, percent is, you just have to divide it the percent, sorry, all right, divide the percent by 100. So we have here, for example, again, we have 75%, which is equals to 75 divided by 100, which gives us 0.75. Now, another thing is when we do changing decimal to percent. All right. So if you have, for example, you have 0. Let's say 15. All right. So what you do is you multiply by 100. All right. So therefore, if we have here, you have 0.15 times 100. Okay. The answer would be 15%. Okay. So that's the use of percent and decimal to fractions. And let's review. Percentages means this means that it is percent y100. That's what they mean by percentage. It is per 100, and you divide it by 100. So the divisor will be 100. Now, if you're going to notice it, from percent, you can change it to a fraction and then change it into a decimal form. All right. Now here, how do we change percent to decimal? All you have to do is just divide the percent by 100. Okay. Now if you changing decimal to percent, you have going to, first is you multiply it by 100. So if you have 15.15 times 100, it gives you 15%. All right. So let's review. Let's have a quick review. All right. First one we discussed is about fraction. All right. So we discussed about what is fraction. All right. Second, the parts of fractions. Third is types. Next is the operation. Okay, next thing that we discuss is we discuss about ratio. Now, what is a ratio? And the different ways to write a ratio. Alright, the different ways, the ratio, and we discuss also proportion. Alright, the third thing we discussed today is percentage. Next is what is a percentage? What is a percent? Next, how changing decimal to percent and changing percent to decimal. Alright, so these are the things that we discussed today. Okay, for a short review. Alright, first is we discuss about fraction. What is a fraction, parts of a fraction, types of a fraction, and the operations. Alright, and then next is we discuss also about ratio. So what do you mean by ratios? Different ways to write a ratio, and then we apply it using proportion. Next, we discuss about percentages. What is a percent? How do we change decimal to percent, then percent to decimal? So I hope everything is clear upon the discussion. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment and feel free to ask. I'll be very much willing to answer your question. And don't forget, guys, there is a worksheet after this, and make sure you are going to answer the worksheet. Alright, so if you have any question, again, please feel free to comment and ask me. I'll be very much willing to answer all your questions.